Get home from school, turn on my TV. Who are these friends staring right back at me? Now that we're older, why don't you come over and go back in time with me? 90s babies, nostalgia.
Hi, this is 90s Babies Nostalgia.
And this is Live Her Alone.
Hey!
Okay.
And today we're bringing you a very special collab episode. For those of you listening on Live Her Alone, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Jessica.
And we're a couple of 90s babies who like to rewatch and dissect media that gives us all of those good nostalgia feels.
And for those of you listening on 90s Baby Nostalgia, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Ian.
Two nerds who consume a whole lot of horror, discussing our favorite pieces of horror media, from movies and TV shows to novels, video games, and everything in between.
And welcome to this fun collab. This is like the first time we've ever done a proper crossover. We've been on other people's podcasts, and we've had people on our podcast, but we've never done like a twofer.
I'm excited. We're brand new, so this is like our first time for anything.
It's fun. Just for anyone listening, Jess and I at least are mindful of our WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes going on right now. So we chose a film that is known as one of the most successful independent films of all time.
Mhm.
Universal may own the franchise distribution rights, but the original first one, that one's still not with them, baby. We had to pay like $4 to watch the HD version on YouTube.
Yep.
And we bought it. We bought it because I'm like,
We watch it so many times.
I watch it every year on Halloween, so we bought it.
You got the DVD?
I wanted to get the DVD, but Sarah was like, "Nah, just get the."
Just buy it.
I was like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I bought it on demand on YouTube.
I debated buying it, and then I was like, me and Amanda are never going to watch this again. Who am I kidding?
We bought it through our podcast YouTube so that we could both watch it for one price.
Oh, smart.
Yeah.
Genius.
But we do have a question that we like to ask each other when we start each episode. So we're going to ask you, Sarah and Ian, what have you been listening to or watching or enjoying lately?
I can go first. Over the weekend, I started listening to a different podcast. I'm a big spooky podcast person, obviously.
Surprise.
I know. So I started listening to Old Gods of Appalachia, which I think has been around for a while. It's got like 85 episodes or something like that. But it's a horror fiction podcast, and it's set in like an alternate Appalachia. I've been seeing a lot of Appalachia talk, and there's just some weird shit that goes down in Appalachia. But it's like an alternate one, so everything's fictional, but it's kind of like close to reality in a weird way. So it's been fun and spooky.
Yeah, and I've been playing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game that came out like 3 weeks ago. So yeah, that's
been fun.
That's the fun part. And then we take off all the lights and we play it.
I know nothing about this game other than obviously the title of the famous movie. So are you the killer or are you trying to run from the killer?
You can play as both.
Ooh, we love versatility.
I kind of love that.
Yeah. So it's really fun. I play mostly the best to play as the victims because it's like that's where you feel the fright. But then when you play with the killers, it's hard to kill them with the killers because it's like they're hiding. I'm like, where are you? But
I feel like after work, playing as the killer would be really cathartic.
Yeah, it's fun.
That's a good point. I never thought about it that way.
And Sarah plays too.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Can you do 2-player where one of you is the killer and the other one's a victim?
That's if you do a party, but
yeah.
But we're not playing like that because
maybe keep that in mind for the next time I come over.
Yeah,
you gotta see it
for sure.
You're gonna be like, what the fuck? Yeah, it's fine.
Jess, do you have something?
Guys, I'm struggling with Rex because I'm trying to not do anything struck. Amanda knows this. My recommendation lately is go cook soup. I've been making a lot of soup because I've been feeling my fall vibes. And so
I love to hear it.
Make soup. That's what I recommend.
I love soup. I love soup.
And I don't.
Big fan of that.
Oh, It is truly like one of the best foods, but I
It
was
really
really
is.
struggling. All I've been doing is music lately, and so I'm like, okay, I need something else. Soup. How about you, Amanda?
I've been really enjoying YouTube deep dives on pop culture. Surprise, surprise, based on the podcast that we have. Sarah and I are just a couple of stereotypes.
We're
Um,
so annoying.
I'm pretty sure I've recommended her like a year or two ago. Mila Tequila. She comes out with one episode every 9 months, but it's a banger of an episode. She's currently like recapping the entirety of the Jersey Shore, and as someone who never watched a single episode but grew up in that time, I'm so invested.
That sounds cool. Yeah.
That's so funny.
How
She
long is
goes deep into
How
like, this
long
is
is
the genesis of the show, this is where the cast is from, and then she goes episode by episode through the entire show. It's really good.
Wow.
Oh, you know, we've been watching this guy on YouTube. I think it's called CZ's World, and
Oh, it also is deep
yeah,
dives.
he does that too. He like goes into each horror movie or each horror thing, and he like goes like really deep into it. So yeah, and his episode could be like 10 minutes, and he'd be talking about like one stupid thing, but it's fun.
Nice. Yeah, no, her episodes are like 2 hours and they're two-parters.
Yeah.
Oh
Oh
my
my
god.
god.
2 hours of Jersey Shore recaps.
Literally. But speaking of 2-hour episodes, to try to prevent that, because Jess and I have literally put out 2-hour episodes before,
Yeah.
and you are not about that. We're continuing with our spooky season content, and for you, it's just your normal content because it's spooky season
True.
year-round for you. We're going to be covering Halloween. So, Jess, you want to set up the background? Because I did not look into this at all.
Oh my. Okay, sure. I'd love.
You wrote
to.
it.
I did. This is a 1978 indie film. We mentioned it before. One of the most like well-known / like known as one of the most successful indie films of all time. It was directed, written, and scored by John Carpenter, and then co-produced and co-wrote by Deborah Hill. What I found fascinating is that it was filmed in May of the same year it was released, which is just wild.
I didn't know
Because
that.
that's not a lot of time.
That's what they used to do. Man. That's what they
Nope.
used to do.
Yeah, I guess, but now you think like freaking reality TV takes like a year to put together and then show. Like, and this is like a full-on movie, and they did it in like 4 months, 5 months. It had a budget of like 325K, which is like super, super low, equivalent of like 1.1 million today, which is like nothing to make a movie. And it grossed 70 million worldwide. Those are my biggest things. I think everyone knows it spawned a huge franchise, which we will not be talking about the franchise content because that is struck work. But it is just like a really, really iconic horror film. It kind of like set up the genre.
Yeah, considered the first of like a start of Spawn, right, guys? Like inspired by Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, I think, and started the slasher genre in like the modern film.
It's definitely a classic at this point. Like when we think about horror movies and we think about slashers, we always go straight to Michael Myers. He's just like the character.
OG.
And then a lot of movies spawn off of Halloween. So it's like the influence is continuously going on. And we're going to talk about it, but in Live or Alone podcast, we obviously talk about Scream, and Scream is almost like a complete, like not ripoff, but like a duplicate almost of Halloween.
It's like an homage.
A very close homage, yeah.
Yes, I watched it because I listened to your podcast, and then I had to watch it, and I even got that it was an homage watching it, never having seen either film.
Yeah, it's very close.
Just a quick rundown of our characters. We have Loomis, which I didn't realize that was his name the whole time I watched it. He's the doctor. He's Michael Myers' psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh.
this clears up a lot because when you wrote the summary, you just kept writing the doctor, and I'm like, why the fuck is she not putting his name? And so I had to add it, and it's because you didn't know that was his name.
I put Loomis when I typed up the summary, but in my own notes, I wrote Doc.
Okay.
I didn't. The first credit is him, and I went, who the fuck is that? He's played by Donald Pleasance. Our main character, Lori, of course, played by Jamie Lee Curtis. Her big film debut, little teenager Jamie Lee Curtis looking very similar to how she still does.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Laurie's best friend, Annie, played by Nancy Loomis, also known as
No.
Nancy Keys. Loomis is
I-
her stage name. Keys is her legal name. I
Oh.
know that much.
I didn't know.
Thank you. Linda is her other best friend, played by PJ Souls. Obviously, Michael Myers. This really pisses off Jess, so she can mention this.
Okay. In their freaking tiny ass budget that they had, they decided they're going to pay 3 separate people to play the same character. I would argue 2 are required of the 3. But you have Tony Moran, who plays unmasked Michael Myers, Nick Castle, who plays him while he's masked, and then Will Sandon, who plays the child version. He's unmasked for like 10 seconds. Like,
Not even.
I don't
I know.
understand.
You're totally right. I don't understand.
Because I was like, this makes no sense. Like, we paid an additional actor for the like seconds that the mask comes off. Like, I don't get it.
And then we have their 2 little babies that were babysitting on Halloween because they don't get to have fun. Lindsay, played by Kyle Richards. That's correct? A Kyle? You sure it's not Kylie? I have no idea. Jess wrote this. And Tommy, played by Brian Andrews. So we set the scene.
Yeah, she's played by Kyle. Her name is Kyle.
We love a gender neutral
love
name.
that. Love that.
Oh, yeah.
As no one on this call has one. We set the scene. We open in Haddonfield, Illinois, 1963. And at the very beginning, I was wondering why we were in 1963. And then I realized it was a flashback because you're in first-person POV, which was a very interesting choice. Watching these 2 teenagers have sex through the window, and then you go into the house, and then you stab one of the teenagers right after she says, "Michael," and then and then you see. Well, actually, she says it more like Michael. And
You have no idea how many times I do that. Like when we put the movie on, the first thing I do is Michael.
Yeah, me too.
So
Me too.
stupid.
Me too.
And then you see little 6-year-old Michael Myers with his large ass knife. That's just supposedly a kitchen knife, but it's like half the size of his body.
Yes.
But do you know who he killed, though?
His sister.
Oh.
Okay, so
He thought he was gonna
you
dupe
did
you
pay
there.
attention. You did.
Yeah, bro, I took fucking
Weird.
notes.
It's weird.
Notes.
But the weird thing is fetish.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, why? Like, this is the right time to kill her. Right after she.
I know. While she's still like this titties. This is the first of like 5 shots
Multiple
of teenage titties. Teenage titties everywhere in this film.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, cut to Smiths Grove, Illinois, 1978, and we have Mr. Loomis, the psychiatrist. He's in a car with a nurse. They're going to see Michael, and he cannot dehumanize this person more. This is not a man. This is a monster, and he's evil, and he hasn't spoken in 15 years, and you better give him the really harsh tranquilizer. And then Michael somehow broke out of the sanatorium and also very easily steals the nurse's car. Like, he gets on top of the car, so she rolls the window down, so he just pulls her out and drives away. And this starts the subplot of the film where Dr. Loomis is like looking for Michael in his hometown of Haddonfield and all of that we're not going to cover for the rest of the summer because we just don't have time. But like that's happening. He's basically just confirming what the audience knows, which is that Michael's
Right.
home.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Also, I don't like him, so I don't feel like talking about him.
Agreed.
Fair.
Then we flash forward back to present day, so 1978 in Haddonfield, and we see a teenager, Lori, walking to school, and she takes a detour to the Myers house to drop off a key because her dad just sold the house. And that's where we see like the first figure of the shape in the house. And then Lori goes to school, and we kind of see her like walking around school and getting multiple flashes of Michael Myers throughout the day. Then in the evening, Lori and her friend Annie, who's a terrible friend, which we will get into,
The
but
worst.
literally the
worst.
worst friend ever. They head to their houses, the houses where they'll be babysitting, which are like across the street from each other. And on the way, they come across like a police scene at a hardware store where we learn that someone broke in and stole Halloween masks, some rope, and a few knives.
Who could that be? Just the kids.
Michael.
He says it's the kids, right?
Yeah, and then we get like we are cutting over like a good portion of the suspense of this part because we don't like Annie either. But we get a lot of scenes of Annie is clearly being stalked by Michael while she is babysitting, as is Lori, but a little to less of an extent at this portion of the film. And then she brings little Lindsay over to the house where Lori is with Tommy so she can go see Paul, and she gets murdered. She gets strangled in the back of a car and then like tased or something.
Is it tased?
It was
No,
something. It
just
was like a shocky
stabbed.
thing.
Oh yeah, because of the cop. He had the cop car, right? He stole the cop car.
But it was
Oh,
but it was
maybe.
in her
Oh,
car.
The nurse's car. Yeah. Yeah, it was. In
I don't
her
know.
car. No, he
She
killed
gets
her.
she gets
He's the first one.
killed.
Very theatrical stabbing.
Yeah, the stabbing, we'll get into the stabbing later. And then little Tommy sees Michael carrying Annie into the house, and he's like, "It's the boogeyman!" And Lori's like, "Go back to your movies."
Yeah. Poor Tommy.
You're seeing the boogeyman outside, and I'm forcing you to watch scary movies. Like, what? I don't understand.
And then I need to do this point because this appalled me. Her other friend, Linda, goes to the house where Annie was babysitting with her boyfriend, Bob. And these teenagers are so fucking horny that they hook up on the couch and then they go upstairs to the bedroom of the Wallaces, their neighbors. We don't know their relationship, and have sex in their bed, smoke in their bed, go to get beers. Paul goes downstairs fully dressed while Linda's still naked, but doesn't turn on any lights. So, of course, he gets murdered in the dark. Yeah. And then Linda's upstairs, teen titties still out for Michael Myers, who comes out and strangles her with the phone cord while she's on the call with Lori, who's like, "I'm being pranked. Let's go check on my friends."
Yeah, but the noises. Tell me Michael wasn't moaning there, too.
All right.
He was on the phone.
We know how Michael feels about some teenage titties.
He's a big fan, it seems.
That was his first words after how many years? 50?
Yeah, seriously.
Like, I cannot stress enough this shot where, like, she's wearing a shawl that kind of covers her breasts, but also doesn't cover her breasts. Exactly. And she's, like, flashing the audience as she's dying.
Well, I told Sarah, I was like, sometimes your back is cold, you know? The front is not cold.
We rewatched it recently, and I was just like, so she put the shirt on to not cover the titties. So why did she put the shirt on for her whole, like, everything to be exposed anyway? It just doesn't make... At least take it off if you're going to let it all out anyway.
Ian, I don't know about you, but when you're a lady, them nips are always the coldest part.
That's what I said.
Sometimes your back is cold, you just got to let the front out.
No.
It's not. No. I would say this is like the point in the movie where like Lori actually starts taking what's happening seriously. And so she leaves, she goes to check on Annie because she's like, something is up. She's searching around the house. She goes upstairs and she sees dead Annie lying on the bed with the tombstone of Judith Myers on the bed, which I don't think we mentioned, but he stole that as well.
We did. It was in Loomis's plot. We don't care about him.
And then she's like walking around the room. She like opens a door and Bob comes like flying from the door. And then she opens another door that I think is a closet, but had some weird shelving, and Linda's like shoved into one of the shelves dead. And so at this point she's like, oh shit. And Michael Myers comes at her in the room and like slashes her leg, but then she's able to get away and she's like running around screaming for help, and people could care less.
She
No one
literally goes
wants
to
to
her
help her.
neighbor's house
Yeah.
and their lights are on and then they turn them off.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
Oh, that's
literally
horrible.
why I hate horror. Like watching her in that, I'm like, oh my God, no one's helping you and you truly are in distress. And it like stressed me out so much for her. I was like, poor girl.
Yeah.
And so she gets away. She ends up going back to the house and he follows her in. And she takes a knitting needle from the couch and like stabs him in the eye. Which at that point, he like throws the knife and it lands on the couch cushion and she just leaves it there.
Yeah, she
Because-
picks it up and then decides, no, he's dead, and leaves it.
Yeah.
Instead of going after him and
Yeah.
finishing him off.
Well, and I guess at this point, the knitting needle's not in the eye. The knitting needle's like in the shoulder or something.
It's in the neck, I
so.
think.
In
The
the
neck.
neck somewhere. Yeah.
Okay. Then she goes upstairs. I think she's checking on the kids and she's
She
like,
is.
Yeah.
she's checking on the kids. She's like, I killed him. I got the boogeyman. Ha. No, she fucking didn't. He's continuing to
Surprise, he's behind you.
Surprise. Yeah. And so she tells the kids to like lock the door and stay safe. I feel like she really does not care about these poor children. She hides in the closet, locks the door of the closet where he's like breaking into the closet. And she's like taking one of those like cheap, flimsy wire clothes hangers. She like fashions it into a stabbing device. And this is when she stabs him in the eye. He drops his knife again. She this time thankfully fucking picks it up and stabs him. But he's still not dead.
Yeah.
And so she's checking on the kids with her back to Michael Myers. Like the person who has been attacking you for the last like hour, you're going to turn your back to him. And then he goes to get her, starts to strangle her, and then Dr. Loomis shows up, shoots him multiple times. Do you want to give the ending, Amanda?
And
He
he's naked.
He falls off the balcony and then he disappears.
Yep.
That's what he does. That's what he-
Motherfucker doesn't die. Sorry, I'm supposed to not
And
swear
he's-
as much for your podcast.
And he's shot like 5 times.
Yeah.
Many times.
He's been
Worked out.
stabbed. He's been shot. He like all his major arteries have been hit.
Yeah.
And that's why it's Michael Myers.
It's so funny to hear.
That's why it's Michael Myers.
It's so funny to see your like shock at this because the guy gets like stabbed like 500 times in his life and he doesn't die. He gets like lit on fire. He gets blown up, but he just does not die. It's just like the formula. Michael Myers. He's never ever
But
gonna
you know
die.
what? This reminds me of the new Scream movie, though.
The new Scream movie.
In the new Scream movie, he's stabbing the victims and they're not dying. So did we miss?
Mm.
It's excess. There's so much excess in it. But I feel like Michael Myers is like the epitome of excess.
Yeah.
Like you can do whatever you
and he
want
still come back.
and
yeah.
nothing affects him for some reason.
That's why he's like. That's why that's the horror in it.
He's truly the boogeyman, which is
Yeah.
the last line of the film.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fine. Doesn't freak me out at all.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jess.
I was going to ask because at least this was my first time watching the film. I think it also was Amanda's first time watching
Mhm,
the film.
mhm.
Okay, yes. So we can't really speak on like any nostalgia to the film, but it's obvious it is not your guys' first time watching the film. So like what are your like memories or nostalgia related to Halloween?
Ooh. I think the first time I saw Halloween, I was definitely way too young. Let's just say that. And I think I watched like, you know, those edited versions that they put on TV during like the Halloween season.
That's our holiday.
And like they edit out all the tits, they edit out all of the cursing and stuff, but it's still, you know, probably not the best movie to be watching when you're like 11 years old. But I watched it during Halloween time and I watched it with my mom, funny enough. I just remember it being like a childhood thing that I saw during Halloween. And so like anytime it would be Halloween time, we would put the movie on, and it just has like the opening scene is very nostalgic for me because that's how I remember Halloween growing up, with like the leaves blowing around and the jack-o'-lanterns on
Yeah.
people's like step, and then you just go trick-or-treating and stuff like that. So I get that vibe from the very beginning. So whenever we put it on, I get all in my cozy feels, even though this is not a cozy movie. I just
Mm-mm.
get in my feels though.
Yeah, same with me. It's just that when I saw it, I was like, I think I was like 10 or 11, and my older brother would like to scare the shit out of me. So we would put it on. I'll be like covered, like watching it, but you like to get scared, so I was just like watching it. So it was one of my first like the first movies I ever seen, and my mom did show me. My parents showed me all of it, and they were just like, take that shit. Sometimes they were like, take that shit off because he's gonna scare the kids. But it was fun to watch. Yeah.
So because you were both kids when you watched it, were you both scared the first time that you watched it?
Mm.
Yes.
I don't think I was scared.
No?
I don't think so.
Because this is the thing, is like Jess is an absolute baby with scary movies. It was
As in, I think we need to clarify, this is the first horror movie I have ever watched. Like, I
Stop
don't.
it.
No, I don't watch horror. I don't watch scary things. I don't want to. I like creepy. I like a little spook. I don't want to be scared. Like, I don't like. It's not fun for me. I don't enjoy it. And so I was very nervous going into this.
we almost had a video call, but instead, because she watched it a little later, she sat with her husband so she could like hold his leg and like punch him.
Mhm.
They watched The Last of Us together because he wanted to watch it, and she had to cover her eyes when the zombies and stuff were out.
Oh.
Uh,
Oh, yeah, like to the point
The
that
sound
the dog was consistently like freaking out when we were watching The Last of Us because I just like could not handle it, and he knew I was like in stress. So Toby kept coming up and checking in
Oh
on
my
me.
gosh.
I like can't even watch like a war movie. Like, and that's not horror. Like anything that's like suspense, thriller, action, like I do not do well with. So horror is like just not really for me at all. But honestly, it was not that scary. Though I do have to say, because when I said that today, my husband's like, you scream, like I screamed out loud probably like 10 times. And there were
Oh.
multiple times that I had the blanket like up. So it was just my eyes sticking out of the blanket. But it truly wasn't that scary, which I was like shocked by. And I feel like there was not as much killing and death as I expected for a slasher film.
There was a lot less
Okay.
slashing than I
Yeah.
expected because like
Yeah.
the stabbing that was happening was very much off camera usually. I get it was the time, but yeah, I wasn't scared at all. And I am someone who watched horror growing up a bit, but I like messaged Jess and I was like, between how old this is and how low budget this is, you're gonna be fine.
Yeah, totally. It's also funny to go back to your point about The Last of Us. That's a show that I recommend to people who want to watch something light. So I
So Sarah's like very confused.
Yeah,
hope
it's
that
not
you
that.
didn't like shit yourself while you were watching this. It sounds like you didn't, so that's good. But
No, this honestly to me is less scary. And I think we'll get into it, but I think it's less scary and less intense than something like The Last of Us because the suspense build is so slow
yeah.
that there's not
Mhm.
like a lot of jump scares or unexpected things. Like they really draw you into it and you know what's coming before it happens. And I think that takes away a lot of the like stress and fear I get, like because it was so slow and the music gives you very obvious cues and I'm like, okay, I know what's happening now.
That's
With The
true.
Last of Us, they like turn a corner and there's like fucking crazy zombie in your face. I'm like, I don't want to see that shit, you know?
It's also a good point with like older movies. Like there's a lot more subtlety in the older movies. Like
Yeah.
we talk about Scream all the time, but like that one was also a bit subtle. And if we compare it to the newer movies, I don't want to talk about franchises, but like in the newer movies, they just get gradually more and more intense and more violent. And then they
Mhm.
show it on screen a
Yeah.
lot more. Like when we were watching the new Scream, we're like, wow, we're seeing him stab him like 50 times
Guts.
on
Wow.
camera. You don't really see that in like the older ones. So I'm glad it wasn't that too intense.
Yeah, I could see why, like, it's not a scary movie to me, but I could see why it's a hallmark of horror because it has that classic horror long shot. It has the really incredible score, like scenes that would go on for ages, and the vibes were there, and you know from the beginning the setup that it's going to be Michael Myers versus Laurie, but that doesn't actually happen until about 15 minutes before the end of the film, of a 90-minute film. So you're just like waiting in drawn out subtle suspense the whole time.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
It was fun though, because I was just like, I don't fuck with Annie, but I'm waiting to get to Laurie's bit, so
Annie, oh my gosh. Every time I watch, I'm like, Annie, what the hell?
She's a horrible friend. Horrible. She doesn't care about anyone.
No.
She's the worst.
she is appalled. No, not appalled. She's shocked that Laurie could have a crush on someone. That Laurie's not all books.
She's so annoying. I'm like, girl, what the hell?
Yeah.
And then she's always cracking jokes on her. I'm like, chill out for a second and be her friend.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But speaking of Annie, let's get into like some of the things Jess and I pointed out, because we have lots of questions and we're already 30 minutes into this.
Mhm.
Go for it.
When they're headed to Annie and Laurie, they're going to babysit, and they stop by the hardware store, and Annie's dad is the cop. They were smoking a joint in the car, and he comes to talk to them, and he fully sticks his entire head into the window of the car, and you are telling me he did not smell that joint?
And they were smoking it with the windows up.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
were hotboxing that
They
vehicle.
were hotboxing.
And he didn't say shit. Yeah.
No,
That's how it was back
no,
then.
for
That's how it was
days.
back then.
You smell that shit. Don't
Yeah.
lie. Like,
You would.
I was so confused. Also, I've mentioned it already, but the sheer volume of teenage titties in this film is gratuitous.
For no reason, yeah.
I have to put teenage because that is the qualifier for this. And like, would you ever go into your neighbor's house and have sex in their bed?
Maybe.
what on
It's
earth?
like, with who? Because it ain't me.
Since when? No. But these teenagers are something else. They are on another level. I don't know. Like, they're so bold.
Mhm.
Yeah, they act like like you would think that
They're running around running shit in the town, and they're just like, what, in 10th grade or something? I don't even know how old they are.
Mhm. I was gonna say not as high schoolers, which these are high schoolers, but as a college age teenager, I definitely had sex in places I should have not been having sex. So I'm not gonna fully say this is out of line because I don't think it is.
That's actually true. I know you've had sex in your friends' beds. In
Um,
college. In a dorm
yeah.
situation, that's not out of bounds.
And I've had sex in friends' parents' beds, so I just can't.
Resourceful. You're resourceful, okay?
Yeah.
Which is what these kids are. They're like, we
Right?
babysit just to have a bed.
Might as
Yeah,
well.
exactly. Yeah, because you
Can't do it at home. My parents are home.
Which it's like, I don't know, they're 15, 16. That feels a little young to be doing that, but also like, get it. You know?
Small town. I guess you can get away with it.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of the small town, why is this set in Illinois when it is so clearly filmed in California? Like, when I talk to you East Coasters about how I grew up in a school without hallways because it's all like an open campus with outdoor doors, that's what their schools were. You don't have that in places like Illinois where it snows, and everything about it just like screamed California, and it was filmed there. So why is it set in Illinois?
Mm-hmm. I feel like because California doesn't give people like spooky horror vibes.
Oh,
That's
maybe.
probably why
Maybe.
they wanted to do it like away from it.
Yeah.
Sarah's looking at me like, I've never thought about this before. It doesn't fucking matter.
I don't know anything about California schools. I don't know anything about Illinois, period. So I'm just
Yeah.
lost.
They wanted-
Chicago's in Illinois. It snows there.
Got you. Okay. I'll remember that.
Some of us care. Also, in terms of like the outdoor setting, I really love the on her walk home from school. It goes from being dry and sunny to clearly it has rained all over the ground. And like, it's just they shot the next day or something and it rained and they just didn't change anything.
I didn't notice that.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I watched TV for a podcast.
You took notes.
Yeah. Jess, do you have another one you'd like to point out?
Goofs.
No, but I'll bring up one of yours. You're
Mhm.
upset that the kids are being kept inside and babysat on Halloween. What if the parents want to go out and party?
Why aren't the kids trick-or-treating?
Oh, that's
So
true.
why are there no trick-or-treaters in this movie?
There are.
There were like 3.
Yeah.
Like when she's running around screaming at her neighbor's house,
There's no one.
there's no trick-or-treaters outside.
That's
Yeah.
very true.
When the doctor and sheriff are running around, there's no trick-or-treaters except for like the 3 playing a prank on the Myers house.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why the neighbor never answered the door when she was like screaming. Because they didn't want to like open the door for trick-or-treaters.
That's what I assumed, was they thought it was like a Halloween prank.
Now that makes
Yeah,
sense.
you're right. Why
Well,
would
and
they?
also, like, even though I said that's my worst nightmare, which I actually think it is, I do have to say that if that was me inside the house and there was someone screaming like that outside, absolutely under no circumstances would I open my door.
Nope. No. Same.
I was like, no.
Also, Ian, have you ever thought about how terrible Michael Myers' aim is?
Yeah.
Because that's really like the whole reason Laurie survives. Like, for some reason, this is a grade A killer who has terrible aim at every possible shot with her, and yet she manages to get him in every like worst place.
That's because he knows how to drive better than Gil.
Oh my god.
He knows how. Remember the car? He's driving the car. Like,
Yeah. He's been incarcerated since he was 6, but he can drive a car no problem, but he can't stab people, and that's his whole thing.
the mask is blocking his view. You know.
Yeah.
But he can drive
mhm.
though. Basically, nothing makes sense with Michael Myers.
Because, like,
No.
the first time he stabs her when she's in the bedroom, which also he created a shrine to his dead in someone else's bedroom.
Yeah.
The first time he stabs her, she's right there, and he barely nicks her.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think.
It makes no sense.
Was he really trying to kill her? Nah.
I
That's
mean,
what
what
I
else was
know.
he there?
Mm.
I do know there's
Slowly.
the second one, she's his sister, but then the 2018 one, they got rid of that, and wasn't there like a he's in love with her or something? Like, I feel like there's just been like a lot of motive changes.
Yeah. There's this weird thing where like I think he was tell me if I'm wrong, but I think he was obsessed with his sister. So he kills women who are that look
his
very
sister,
similar to
yeah.
his sister.
That's kind of what I got just
That's what
from
it
this
is.
one. And I know the second one, they established that Laurie is his sister. But then in the 2018 one, they got rid of that.
Yeah, they removed it.
Because it was stupid.
Huh.
Like, that's so stupid.
Yeah, because
That doesn't make any sense. You killed your sister. We saw you do that. That's the first thing that we saw you do. Like,
yeah.
To be fair, I also kind of want to murder anyone that reminds me of my brother. So
Jesus.
Yeah, but what did she do to him though?
Yeah, what did the sister even do for him to be 1, obsessed, and 2, want to kill her? Have her titties out?
Yeah.
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, Jamie Lee didn't show it, so that's why she didn't get killed.
Oh my god.
That's the rule. That's what they
No.
say in Scream, right?
That's the rule. You can't have sex.
Mm-hmm. Because then you get murdered.
I'm glad you remember the rules, Amanda.
I got you.
You mentioned, like, which we've kind of talked about. I'm guessing this is what you mean, the horror long shot, like kind of the build-up throughout.
Yeah. I wasn't
Um,
going to talk about it here because we talked about it
great.
already, but if you have more to
Great.
say.
No. I do want to say that the filming style gave me motion sickness. Might have just been me, but it's very just like all over the place, I felt.
I think you're right.
It's like
Yeah.
low budget. It's the same as like, well, we're not talking about Struck work, but Hunger Games does the same sort of style of we're gonna shake the cameras all over the place, and I felt like that's how this was.
I'm sorry, did you think that pronouncing it just slightly
She was shaking.
shakily?
What you were saying it, she was shaking. What you
I literally snorted. I
Yeah.
snorted, bro.
Like, it could be like the Suzanne Collins adaptation, the Jennifer Lawrence Arrow movie, like something, but no, you so
Tried. You tried.
Yep. My other question is, why is the movie so quiet? Like, I thought it was just me, but then I texted Amanda and I was like, did you have to turn your volume up to like 100? And she was like, yes. It's so quiet. You can't hear any of the dialogue without having captions on and turning it up all the way.
Yeah.
It is quiet.
They didn't have their mics.
I noticed that too when we rewatched it. We had to turn it up all the way, and I don't know if it's like an old movie thing because I do that with Scream too. Like I have to turn it up all the way also.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just quality of equipment,
Mm.
maybe.
Like they had a shitty boom.
Mm-hmm.
Because the music was like freaking loud, but then like everything else.
The music, they really are selling to you that it has a great score, which I'm like, yeah, we are aware. Like,
Totally.
let me hear the dialogue, please. Like,
I mean, that the opening song is Halloween,
Yeah.
the holiday. It's
Epic.
like,
yep.
yeah. Also, in things that are the worst, I don't know how y'all feel about the depiction of Michael, but in my mind, this is a human. This was birthed out of a womb from a vagina. And yet, this is not a man. It's a monster. He ate a fucking dog or something, and it's the boogeyman, and he's constantly dehumanized in a way by his own doctor in a way that feels quite ableist to me, watching it now in a 2023 lens.
I agree. I think you haven't seen it, but there's a remake of Halloween. It's not the 2018 one, it's Rob Zombie. And they kind of touch on that. They kind of touch on the fact that like this Michael has been neglected and has been mistreated, and they kind of that particular movie puts it on a spin where it's like it feels more of like a revenge movie. It feels more of like Michael's getting revenge for being neglected and not being treated properly his whole life. So I can totally see that point.
They put him in like his family's messed up, like his dad, like like
he was abused,
trailer trash family, like that. Yeah,
toxic family. Nobody really like took his mental illness seriously, and then he's just out for revenge in that movie.
Yeah, because even if like regardless of what his home life was like, the first stabbing aside, Jess made the point of like, you put a 6-year-old in lockup for 15 years. What do you expect him to come out like?
Yeah. And in that movie that I'm talking about, he comes out pretty fucked up. So it ends up making more sense in that rendition.
Yeah.
And it's like definitely messed
and he
up.
comes out like a bodybuilder.
Because he's like
I'm
training.
telling you, he's working out. They're working out in that in the ward.
There's more of a backstory to that. Yeah.
I do like the point you made in your episode about Scream where like Stu doesn't really have a motive. He just likes being with his friend and stabbing people. And that villains don't always have to have a motive, but at the same time the complete like dehumanization of him is where it felt like a step too far for me personally.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think I'm with you.
They did that to make you feel like he's the scary one. He's you know what I mean? Like you feel it.
Yeah, I guess you can look at it from both ends. Yeah.
And the fact that he never dies kind of makes me feel like maybe there is something supernatural about him.
I was say the fact that they added that in, even though it doesn't make sense, I feel like to an extent it justifies some of the other like ableist decisions of them like constantly calling him a monster and dehumanizing him, because he is essentially immortal. So you're like, okay, is he really a human? Like it kind of.
Is he devil spawn?
Yeah.
I never looked at it that way, but yeah, totally. Because he's definitely something if he can withstand all of those stabs and explosions.
The evil is
Are we making you see it in a new light, Ian?
No.
Damn.
He's Michael Myers as well.
Whatever.
He's had many years to I guess think about this.
There's a portion of this podcast where Jessica and I normally point out quotes that we like. I'm the only one that added a quote. I only have one quote. It's from when they're walking home with their friends, and Laurie's like, I forgot my chemistry book. And Linda goes on an entire rant about how you actually don't need your books. Yeah. One of the quotes being, it doesn't really matter if you have your books or not. But it's a whole rant in the background.
Yeah.
She's like, I actually never have my books. Like, I leave them at school all the time, and you actually really don't need them. They don't really matter.
I realized when we were watching it that was funny. I was like laughing my ass off.
Before it wasn't funny, but now it is.
Yeah,
it's funny now.
Yeah, like I could think of a friend saying that.
But also I think it was to kind of fill up the sound in the background while somebody, I don't know who it was, but somebody was watching Michael in the car drive by. So it's just like filling noise in the background.
Filler.
Yeah, it was Lori watching Michael
That's what it was.
watch
Yeah.
her. Yeah.
Watch you.
We have a quote. We have 2 quotes.
Oh yeah, we have.
Ooh.
Mine, of course, I'm annoying, so I'm going back to the whole Scream thing, but there's a quote from Halloween where Laurie tells Tommy, I want you to go down the stairs, out the front door. I want you to go down the street to the Mackenzie's house. And in Scream, at the very beginning, when Casey Becker is being murdered and the parents walk into the house, the father tells the mother, go down the street to the Mackenzie's house and call 911. So I just wanted to point out that really cool kind of reference that they kind of say word for word the same exact thing in the beginning.
Nice. I like that.
And
Yours?
mine is the last line of the movie: "The boogeyman does exist."
Classic. Classic one.
Yeah.
That,
Because
yeah. He really is the boogeyman.
yeah, because after all that shit,
I mean, yeah.
boogeyman driving school. All right.
Oh, gosh.
Honestly, though, some people, I mean, maybe Sarah could learn from him.
Oh, my God.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Put the mask on to do the test. Yeah.
Cut this shit out. Cut this shit out. No, but for real, though. If you can do it, I can do it.
If he can
Really?
learn while incarcerated.
From the age of 6, it's pretty impressive.
I gotta step it up if Mikey can do it.
I also love the judgment in Loomis's face when he's like, well, clearly someone around here was teaching him how to drive.
Loomis, get out of here. You can't even get a grip on this guy. You're walking around town confused. Can't find him. He drives me crazy.
Do we have any final thoughts before we get into your game?
I think my only thing I want to add is like, for anyone out there who's like not a horror fan, but you want like Halloween vibes, it was a really good watch, and it's not that scary, and it does give you those Halloween vibes. So I was like very pleasantly surprised.
I think I totally agree with you. I think especially during Halloween time, I know a lot of people watch some standout Halloween specific movies like Halloween Town and stuff like that. But I would definitely give this one a try because I know, man. I would give this one a try because it's not that scary, as we can obviously tell. And it has a lot of nostalgia that you don't see as much in newer films that we associate with Halloween. So, yeah.
But the titty version or non-titty version?
Well, there's an edited version for TV, clearly.
Yeah.
I mean, it is called Halloween, Sarah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It
yeah,
is-
but the movie isn't like Halloween, like Halloween Town. Like Halloween Town is like, yay, Halloween, and then Halloween this one is like, yay, Halloween, die.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying. You get it.
For any audio listeners, Sarah just mimicked stabbing.
Oh yeah. There
And
you go.
also, this movie I mean, people get this movie confused with Friday the 13th also, because I think it came out afterwards. Friday the 13th came out afterwards, and they used a lot of the tropes and stuff from it.
Yeah.
So it is like the birth of horror.
It's definitely
one of
like
them,
a
yeah.
base where a lot of movies have kind of like stemmed off so much inspiration from.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I feel like Halloween and Friday the 13th and Scream and Scary Movie, like a Scream and Scary Movie makes more sense because Scary Movie is like a parody of Scream, but like people confuse those pairings a lot.
Do they?
Yeah.
I think they do mentally.
I
Makes
mean,
sense in my brain.
they're slasher horror icons, so I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
Ian, how many times have you seen this movie?
Every year. So let me see.
Every
Let me see.
year
Not to
times-
age me, but
So 52.
no. No, wait, that's 1978. No. I think I seen it the first time I seen it. I was probably 10, so it was like 95.
Okay. So
Math.
almost 20 times.
So yeah, almost 20.
At
every
least
year.
20
No, more
times.
than that.
At least once. At least on Halloween day, we put this movie on. Whatever time it is.
Okay.
That'd be like 30 times if it's once a year.
Yeah.
Probably around that.
We saw it the other day. We're gonna put it on Halloween again. So,
We don't know the exact number.
Yeah. What is
Okay.
that? What is that, Michael?
Game?
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 Yeah.
Game!
Yeah,
Okay.
play a
Game.
Okay, it's a short game. All right, so this game. Oh, but you can see.
I won't look. I won't look.
Okay, so this game is it's not a game that I typically play on our podcast, but because we usually do our games in the beginning and it kind of sets up the scene for the rest of the episode, so I did this more of like an epilogue to the episode, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So, would you survive the wrath of Michael Myers? That is the question that I'm going to ask you all. Okay, so the first question is, it's a spooky fall evening. What are you up to? A, staying in and watching a horror movie, or B, heading out to a Halloween / costume party?
Movie.
Oh no, B. Do we have to pick the same thing, or we all can pick our own?
You can all pick your own. I'm going to
Okay.
tell you your fate at the end.
the costume?
Okay, okay.
Ooh, it's like BuzzFeed.
It's
It's like it's very BuzzFeed, except I
costume
feel
party.
kind of offended. Anyway,
Sorry.
it's 3 questions. Okay, next question.
Wait,
You're
what did
hanging-
Ian say?
B.
Party.
Okay.
So Amanda B.
A.
Amanda A.
Wait.
Jet.
Amanda A. Jess Ian B.
Mhm.
Okay, I got confused. All right, you're hanging with friends and you get up to grab a beverage. What do you tell your friends? A, I'll be right back, or B, nothing. I just go.
B.
Hey.
A.
Okay. And the last question. You get a text from your crush. They want to chill, quote unquote. How do you reply? A, come over. Or B, can't tonight. Sorry.
Oh, A.
B.
You're doing it on purpose. A. I'm gonna say A.
You can't think too hard. Okay. So you know your answers, right? Do you remember your answers? Okay, cool.
Mhm.
So if you mostly picked A, you're dead.
A. I'm a B.
If you mostly picked B, you survive.
Because
Thank
you
you.
stayed home. That's why.
So who died?
Those two.
We had the
Mhm.
same answer.
I'm appalled by you dying because these are just the standard rules that we learn in horror movies.
Yeah, but this is life, though.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that. I feel
Wait.
that.
Wait, so I get the party one and I get the last one. But what about saying be right back or not saying anything at all?
So, if you remember Randy's rules from Scream, Randy's rules, he's got 3 of them. The first one, you can't have sex.
Mhm.
Second one, you can't have drugs, alcohol. It's an extension of rule number 1. And 3, you never say you'll be right back, because you won't be back.
Mm.
And remember in Halloween, the one that you just saw, what was his name? The boyfriend?
Peter,
Peter, he was like, I'll
Oh.
be right back.
when he went to go get the
Bob.
beer for
Bob.
him.
Bob.
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 He was
I
like,
remember being annoyed by his name, but yes, he says I'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
Yeah.
When he's in the bed, he's like, I'll be right back. And then he goes, and then he gets
To go get the beer.
Yeah. And that's the game.
Thank you. I feel satisfied.
You know the rules, Amanda. Apparently better than co-host of Live Alone podcast, Ian here.
Yeah.
I went with my heart.
So did
I
I.
also would definitely die in a horror movie, like 100%. Like I'm not the first to die, but like I'm definitely dying. Like
Yeah.
I'm not surviving.
The problem is I'd just be like, well, I was kind of done with it anyway. you
Yeah.
know?
I feel like a lot of us would probably do that at this point.
This was so fun. Thanks for coming on our podcast, I think, and for having us on your podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a cross episode. So thank you.
On such an eventful day and being so flexible with us for the recording and posting and all of that because we're changing your schedule.
Yeah,
That's
no,
right.
this was
Yeah, that's
fun.
good.
This
That
is our
that made us
first,
come out of our shell.
and it's also our first crossover episode, and it's also
Exciting.
releasing on October 13th, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's that's a special day for us. Not only is it Friday the 13th, but it's Ian's birthday. So
It's in my blood.
it's a little
So
present
happy
for Ian.
birthday.
Thank you.
What is up next for you guys on Liver Alone? What comes out after this? What are you looking forward to?
I've checked the calendar. So, and it's so funny because our next episode is the end of the season, end of season 1. And that episode is actually going to be different than the rest of our episodes. We usually have like a whole structure going on, but that one is going to feel a little bit more like live stream. We're just going to be sitting around and chatting about like
Fun.
real life spooky stuff. So, like, experiences that Ian and I have dealt with. Ian emails a serial killer. I tweeted Matthew Lillard, who plays Stu in Scream. Fun stuff like that. So it's just gonna be very chill way to end off our first season ever.
Fun.
I'm looking forward to that.
Up next for us is we haven't decided yet, but we will be reviewing another Halloween film, most likely foreign film. So look forward to that. But we are debating if we want it to be spooky or more like comedy Halloween or cozy Halloween. So that's up next for us. Follow us on our socials. We're 90s Babies Nostalgia on Instagram and YouTube. Spell out the word 90s. We're also on TikTok, but don't spell out the word 90s there. Just use the numbers because we like to keep it confusing. And
Jess loves that I did that.
and remember to rate and review our podcast. And where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find us on Liver Alone Pod on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Luckily, we've got the same handle. And yeah, definitely check out 90s Babies Nostalgia on social because we're posting this on ours as well. So I just wanted to shout that out. Also looking forward to that next episode, foreign Halloween.
Foreign. We'll see what we end up picking. We have a few ideas. We'll tell you after.
Our ideas have changed since I last spoke to you.
Oh, okay. Well, you'll tell us, and then
We'll tell you.
Yes. Okay. But thank you, anyone who was listening. And thank you for being with us today, Sarah and Ian.
Yeah,
Anytime,
thank you.
Anytime.
Bye.
Good night. Good night, everybody.